And we are live. I appreciate you guys coming. And I actually last time I streamed that was on coming May the 20th, and I do that every time I start the stream and forget to mute the actual stream, so it starts talking over me. But last time I streamed, that was May 20th, and I had just released a video about leaving Jehovah's Witnesses and then trying to come back and what that was like, things like that. So I actually wanted to speak with my brother. His name is Ahab on the server, and because he has a little bit of personal experience with that. Are you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can indeed. So, yeah, like I said, we are brothers, and we grew up together for like a short time, although you're 10 years older than me, so you ended up getting disfellowshipped, and I think I was probably, 10 years old or something? How old were you when you got disfellowshipped?
I was 21.
Okay, so I was 11 then, because you're 10 years and 4 days older than me, exactly. And so from that time, we didn't really talk for like years, right? So tell me, why did you end up getting disfellowshipped?
I mean, the reason they used was fornication. I had a
Shame
girlfriend.
on you.
Yeah, I know, it's terrible. You know the girlfriend I had at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I had met her working, and we worked together with our mother, actually. And but I had gone through training with her, and we were in the same call center. And while that's the one that got me. I had actually sort of I had gone out and met with a girl that I met online and stuff prior to that. But she was the one, because our mother knew her, that ultimately created the problem where the elders became aware of it, and our mother called the elders.
Right. So our mother called the elders on you. That's interesting. So they disfellowshipped you for fornication at the time, right?
Yep.
And how long were you disfellowshipped for before you actually decided to try to come back?
So it wasn't that long. It was about a year and a half, and I was going through a lot of pretty serious personal problems. I started, because right at the same time that I got disfellowshipped is when she and I broke up, and I started drinking pretty heavily, and I was actually couch surfing and homeless for a few months, and
I know what that's all about.
yeah, and then I was literally homeless for a short period of time, and then the man who became my best friend and was best man at my wedding sort of helped pull me out a little bit, but things were still really hard, and I was having a lot of trouble. And our mother asked me if I wanted to go to an assembly, and so I went to the assembly, and we were talking, and she basically said that I could move back into their house if I would start going to meetings.
So you were, 23 or so at this time? I was like 13?
Yeah.
Roughly?
Yep, right about, between 22, 23 time range. I don't remember the exact dates on that stuff.
Interesting, because that whole period of time is, in your life, for me, is just like a complete enigma. Because I didn't know anything about what was going on with you. I hadn't talked to you in years and all this other junk. And so, as you're telling these, these stories, this is kind of new information to me, because we never really revisited, what happened or what you did after that.
There were a couple of occasions where you and I talked briefly when I was working up at the mall.
Right, and I feel like
that was just prior to me moving back in.
Okay, so at that time, trying to think what was going on in my life. I think I was going to...
you were still homeschooling.
Right, and so I had my bicycle with me, and I was riding my bicycle
to
the mall.
And I tried to convince you to go back to school.
Yeah.
And I talked to you a little bit about Buddhism, and our mother yelled at me about that.
Yeah, I remember. I don't even know why I even told her about that, but whatever.
I don't know. And I was studying Buddhism at the time, and
Yeah.
it,
There shouldn't be anything wrong with talking about other religions. You know, it's ridiculous to think that there's something wrong with that, honestly. So,
well, and the funny thing is, if you look back internally in the Jehovah's Witnesses, we did talk about other religions, but always from the direction of how to tell them they were wrong.
yeah,
You know,
that's
they had an
definitely
entire
true.
book. They had an entire book about other religions, but it was always specifically how evil those religions were and how to talk to those people and convince them of that.
Right, definitely. I don't know, man. Like the whole thing, it ultimately ended up leading to me being atheist instead of any other religion because of how they the perspective from which they approach other religions. They all view them as wrong and immoral and all that. So ultimately, I just defaulted to non-belief in general, right?
Yeah, which I can understand. You know, you just start seeing everything from so many different directions, and you know, how do you know what's right and what's wrong? You know, and you start to make your own decisions at some point.
So let me ask you, where did you end up on that scale? Do you consider yourself atheist or?
No, but I also don't know that I'm technically agnostic if you go by the raw description of agnosticism.
Okay.
I like to say that I believe in the potential for a higher power.
Okay.
But what that higher power is up for grabs, and if that higher power exists, is up for grabs.
Right. Interesting. Okay. At one point, you had told me something about like a computer in the sky. I didn't know if you were serious about that or not, but
that's my religion. I want to start someday.
Okay.
I could go on forever about quantum interconnectedness,
right?
And the potential for third level energy beings and that sort of thing. But that's just that we don't need to talk about that here.
Okay. So anyway, you were saying
if you want to do another.
So
you know, the important thing is, and what we talk about is that, you know, when I moved back into the house was because I was at a really bad point, and that was a point where I was susceptible. I was a target in a way because our mother knew that, you know, she could give me a better place to live, and as long as I followed the rule of going to the Kingdom Hall, she was happy because that could push me to being reinstated.
Sure.
And you know, and that's when, you know, you remember I moved back in and I was down in the basement. And, you know, we still stayed somewhat separate.
Yeah.
Except for that hole in the ceiling.
Yeah, they kind of tried to turn the house into like two apartments, except for that damn hole. But,
but you know, the idea, and I know on our parents' part, was to get me reinstated, and almost immediately our mom pushed me to go and meet with some elders and try to take that step forward. And that was when that started, was when I went to the I went to several of the elders that had been on my judicial committee. And the way it works to get reinstated is that you have to go to every single meeting. You're not allowed to talk to anybody except for one elder who is assigned to be your supplier for literature, basically. You're still not supposed to have,
I guess,
your contact. You're still not supposed to have friendly conversations or really any conversations with them. Technically, any elder is allowed to have a spiritual conversation with a disfellowshipped person, but nobody else is allowed to.
That's interesting. I did not know that. They're allowed to have spiritual conversations with disfellowshipped people. Only elders, though.
Yes, exactly.
Fascinating.
But even they try to limit that, obviously.
Right.
And to the fact where I think you knew the elder that I was assigned to.
Was it, I'm just going to say his first name. Was it Steve?
Yep. Yeah, it was Steve.
Okay.
So Steve was the elder that was assigned to me, and he didn't like having those conversations, so we didn't really have them. But
what kinds of
he
conversations, like about religion and being Jehovah's
about
Witness and stuff?
so one of the first things I asked them was, I said, so my grandmother, our grandmother, is a very good person, a perfectly good person. She's done everything she can. She's very religious in her way, but she always did it to the best that she thought she was doing for God.
Right.
In her mind, there was no reason she wouldn't go to heaven, right?
She's Lutheran, I think, too, FYI.
She is now. She wasn't at the time. She's actually changed
a
few
okay.
times. Yeah, so we can talk about the why she goes to the Lutheran churches, because they were good to our cousin that is disabled.
Right, okay.
So I asked him, I said, as good a person as she is, why isn't she going to be in the paradise earth?
Sure.
What is that? And they basically said, well, we're not saying she's not. And I said, but yeah, you are.
Right.
They said, well, all you have to do is convince her and show her the truth.
Right, of course.
That's not the point. Why would a good person that is serving God the way they see is the right way be locked out of heaven or paradise or whatever you believe? And, I brought that up and they basically just shut me down. And so I didn't bring it up again. I just kept going to the Kingdom Hall. I kept going to the meetings. I kept going to the assemblies.
Right.
And for a 6-month period, I did this. And basically, they have this not talked about guideline where at the 6-month point, if the elders feel you're repentant enough, they'll reinstate you. And I saw it happen with a few other families. There was a family in the congregation where the wife had cheated on her husband.
I know the one you're talking about. Was it in in our congregation?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it was.
I'm with you.
And so that family had several elders, including one that had been an elder for like 50 years.
Yep.
So at the 6-month point, almost on the dot, she was reinstated.
Right.
So at 6 months, I wrote this long letter. This is what you're supposed to do. You have to write this long letter that shows your heart and how you feel and just says, I want to be back. I was wrong. I'm ready. Right. So I did that. I thought, I'm ready, because I'd been, drinking the Kool-Aid for 6 months trying to rebuild what I thought was a lost life.
And did you know at the time about this guideline, or did you find out about it later?
I knew about it. They basically tell you. They don't flat out tell you, but they basically tell you.
Right.
They said, when you're ready, you do this. And I had seen people that had been in after 6 months. So
Gotcha.
I knew that was about the time frame.
Interesting.
So I wrote the letter and I put it in, and I didn't hear anything for weeks. And so I finally pinned down Steve. Right. And I said, hey, what's going on here? And he literally said, he's like, look, you shouldn't be talking to me like this. We can't be dealing with this, and you're not ready, so it's not going to happen.
Oh,
yet.
Wow, dude.
And come to find out, his father had died.
I know he had a brother who had died. I don't know when exactly, but he committed suicide.
That was years before.
Okay,
that was before we ever got there. Okay. So his father had died, and he was going through all that stress the entire time. And in fact, he stepped away as an elder for a period of time after the fact. But while all that was going on, he was supposed to be helping me to find the light or whatever, and he wasn't, and they just flat out turned me down. And then the next assembly we went to, I believe, was the one where you and I were walking around and they confronted our mother.
Yeah.
And that was the breaking point for me. That's when I started deciding that I needed to find a way to move away.
From the area or from the religion?
Area, yeah. Okay. I was looking for opportunities to get away from there and just kind of do something different, start fresh. And that's when I took that job out in the middle of West Virginia.
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
And so when that job came up, that was the opportunity for me to just get away from everything. And as soon as I was out there, I never went to another meeting.
So it took you how long from start to finish before you just said, forget it, I'm not even going to try anymore?
Right about it. probably a few weeks from when I sent that letter in. Well, maybe a month from when I sent that letter in to where I decided.
So about
I'm
7
finished.
months roughly before you just said forget it.
Completely, yeah. 7 months of trying, at least 6 months of trying to be reinstated, and a month of pondering whether or not it was worth my life to do that.
So let me ask you this then: where do you think that you would be if they had reinstated you? Do you think that you'd still be in it, or shunning me, maybe?
I was talking to Annabelle about that just today.
Yeah.
It's like there's literally no way to know, right?
Yeah.
It's like I can't imagine that my life would be better.
Right.
I'd probably be washing windows or cleaning offices.
At best, I would say that you would be working for those people who had that little cash register POS system.
Yeah, because of my IT background.
Yep.
Yeah, I
best.
could have ended up there, and it just I can't even begin to imagine where life would have gone from there if I decided to go that direction. And would I have been shunning you if I was a good Jehovah's Witness? I would have.
Right.
Do
you think you would have? Do you think that you drank the Kool-Aid enough that you would have shunned people?
At that time, no. But who knows how deep that when it starts, it can be very insidious the way it digs into your mind.
Yeah, definitely.
But on the other hand, we were never good Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right.
We tried. We pioneered. We went out of our way to try to be good Jehovah's Witnesses, but
we were kind of the pariahs a little bit, right?
Right, because we always, and part of that was because our father never really wanted to be a Jehovah's Witness.
Right.
Only when it benefited him. Did he want to be a Jehovah's Witness?
And in fact, I'm just going to tell this little bit of the interesting story about that. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong here, but our mother our mother divorced our father, and they were both like non-Jehovah's Witness, never gotten involved in it. And then she eventually started studying with Jehovah's Witnesses, and then told him if he becomes Jehovah's Witness with her, then she will remarry him, basically, right?
That was sort of it. Basically, it was, if you want to see the kids, you're going to start studying with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
That's crazy. And you and 6-Bit were very young, like 6 years old or something like that?
Younger than that. I was between 2 and 3 at that point.
Okay.
So, and she's a year and a half older than me. So
yeah.
I have very few, like a couple of memories from, like I have a single memory of a Christmas. So
that's so crazy. Yeah, you guys celebrated Christmas when you were younger.
I would have been 2 years old when that happened.
Yeah, that's insane.
So that's basically it. Trying to become reinstated, trying to get back into it was because I thought that was the only way my life could be good.
Yeah.
And
I can't speak for you, but I can say without a doubt that my life is just an insane amount better than it could possibly have been on the inside because of because of the fact that they discourage ambition almost.
Yeah,
they're like, you don't want to go to college, you don't want to get a good degree, you don't even want to bother trying to make a lot of money, you just want to scrape by in life. That's what you want to do.
Yep. Now, our mother was an odd duck as well, because while she pushed us, she wanted us to pioneer and go to Bethel and that sort of thing.
Sure.
She wasn't against college either.
Right.
She also, when I talked about going to college, she was all for that. But I think a lot of that was because she had such a struggle for so many years and felt that, anything that could keep you from struggling was good.
Right.
But again, that was part of the whole not being the best Jehovah's Witnesses thing.
Sure. And think about this, like, you're right. I don't remember hearing her say anything bad about college really outwardly, right? But for one thing, I do know that Jehovah's Witnesses heavily stigmatize and in some cases even just outright ban it, like some certain families do. And I got to thinking, I remember one time I was dating this girl who was kind of a Jehovah's Witness, but not really. You remember the one I'm talking about. She, like, basically, she had ambitions, high ambitions. She wanted to go to college. She wanted to get a degree. She wanted to make a lot of money. And I remember saying to her one time, yeah, I just want to be a plumber. I mean, they make a lot of good money. They make enough money to get by, and that's really all I need, you know? And I just thought that was, like, the most mature thing that I could have said at that time. And just, like, was so confused by the look on her face when I said that. So to me, it's like there are parts of the religion that have affected me so deeply, and I still don't understand, or I still don't see exactly how it's affected me in those types of ways. Like, Mom wasn't anti-college necessarily, but I picked it up from the religion.
Well, and I remember when you were down visiting our other brother, and you got interested in the plumbing and stuff because you were, because you were around these very spiritual people who also worked in the trades, and the trades can make you a great living. And you can see that that's the wealthy Jehovah's Witnesses are mostly high-end tradesmen. Yeah. With the the people who become Jehovah's Witnesses later in life are the only ones that have like a real college education. Yeah. So when you see a successful Jehovah Witness, he's an electrician or a plumber or, a good carpenter who's been doing it for 50 years kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. There was that one elder. I'm going to move on in a second because I've spent a lot of time on this. But
we're running a lot of time,
Yeah, there is this one elder in that congregation who is like a dentist. I think he made
So he wasn't actually a dentist. He was he made dentures and stuff like that. That's a different field.
Okay, but did he have like a PhD or what? What did he have? Do you know?
No, he went to so if you remember, he was from the UK, and he had gone to school there there's actually a particular field of making false teeth and fake teeth and all that sort of thing. And so I think he had gone through like a dental school program, but he didn't have the doctorate that makes you a dentist.
Interesting. Well, he had a nice big house, but, I actually went back there like this last time that I went to the meeting.
Nice and big as you think.
No, yeah, it's tiny, man. I mean, it's really nice on the inside, I guess, but it's a really small house, dude. Like, I was really surprised to see that. It's so funny. Yeah,
but because even if he had money, he didn't want to look like he had money. He was an elder.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. That's very true. But anyway, I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you telling me that story. That is really interesting.
Yeah, if you want to talk more about other things another time, just let me know.
Yeah, for sure. I'll do that.
All right. Have a good night.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That's a really good glimpse into how the religion operates and what kinds of things you have to go through to get reinstated. So, yeah, it takes at least 6 months. I thought it was like a lot longer. I thought that Ahab tried a lot longer than he did to get reinstated. I thought it was like a year or something. But you know what? I'm glad it didn't work. I'm glad that dude was going through troubles. That elder was going through troubles that made it so that he didn't focus as much on it, because we wouldn't be where we are today otherwise. Now, the next person I wanted to speak to was Stop Being an Ashleen. Are you there? Can you hear me? Testing. 1, 2, 3. No?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good.
Good. So we haven't spoken before on the podcast, have we?
Yeah. No, we haven't.
So tell me, what religion?
I sent you art. Yeah.
Did you? Wait, well, now I have to find it. Hang on. I've got to find this art. Give me a second. You sent me artwork, you said?
Yeah, once.
I've got to. I'll look for it and I'll see which one it is. Yeah. But anyway, so what religion were you originally? You still religious or?
Well, I used to be Christian. Not really Christian. I've never been religious really, because my whole family has been Christian and stuff. But my mom we never went to church or anything, because my mom told me that we never went to church because she's still trying to find a church, but like turns out she was agnostic.
Oh, interesting. So she didn't really know if God was real or not, that kind of thing? Wasn't super into religion?
Yeah, and I just like, I never grew up going to church or anything, so I never thought about it, really.
Sure.
And I just like went on to that.
Very interesting. So there wasn't like a specific denomination that you went to, I guess? You just kind of went around looking for churches? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, basically.
Very
The only
interesting.
times I actually went to church was when I was like a baby, when I got baptized,
Right.
and when my cousin communion, is that what it's called?
Communion?
My cousin's communion? Yeah.
There's a confirmation.
Well,
That's something in the Catholic Church. Is that what it was, or?
I think, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm mixing things up and stuff. And when my 6-year-old cousin was baptized too, that's the only times I've ever went to church. Mostly on my like aunt's side and stuff, because they're basically really religious.
Very interesting. So what got you interested in my community on YouTube? Like, what got you into my videos and videos that are similar to mine?
I thought it was really interesting about what you talked about, like all the cults and the Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff. I thought it was really interesting about the stuff you talked about.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
And like it caught my eye.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad you found your way to my channel, and I'm glad you didn't really have to deal with the the aftermath of religion. I'm glad you didn't have to deal with that kind of hardship. That's really rough on some people. But
Yeah.
do you have any kind of like crazy, interesting stories about religion or anything like that? Any kind of crazy thing that's ever happened to you with it?
When I think like I have a friend, he I've known him since like for a long time, since I was little, and he's really religious, even more religious than my aunt's side of the family.
Right.
And like he's every single day at school he tells me, "Hey, you should go to my church." And I'm just like, okay, I guess, I don't know.
Right.
So like, and I never really gone to it, but like I've went there once for like, I don't remember, but it was like a really nice church and stuff. And my dad's like, "Hey, this is a nice church. Maybe we should go," because my dad's still kind of religious.
Right.
And my mom's like, nah, not really. And because my mom, she's agnostic, and I guess it was crazy because my friend, it's I'm weird. I ramble too much.
Oh no, you're good. It's pretty interesting. Go on.
And I remember going to there, and I never really got all the hymns and stuff. Like I never really sang in churches before or anything, so I never sang or anything. So I had to get one of those books.
Right? Like one of the hymn books or whatever?
Where it had all the words. Yeah, that I had to use. And it was so embarrassing for me.
I know. Like I kind of understand where you're coming from there, because of course going to like another church is a disfellowshipping offense when you're Jehovah's Witness. So I never did end up going to another church until very, very recently. For the very first time, basically, I went to my very first church service. I set foot in another church for the first time recently. And, well, you know, that's not actually completely true, because when I was, let's see, I think I was probably 13. My brother, like not the one I just talked to, but the other brother, his wife at the time, her grandmother died, and she was not Jehovah's Witness. So I ended up going to that church, that service, that funeral service or whatever, and it was bizarre. It was so weird. Like the preacher, I can't even imitate it now, but you probably know what I'm talking about when I say like Southern preacher voice.
Oh yes, I live in the South. So I understand.
It's the strangest thing ever. You know, I really need to do a video on that, like on really weird preaching practices. Be pretty interesting, but anyway, that's good. You know, I'm glad you're on the outside and you didn't really have to go through that too much. That's really good to hear. Did you, as a side note, like, I've only been doing this podcast for, like, so long, but is there, like, so I'm kind of trying to figure out which questions to ask and stuff, but is there anything that you want to ask me? I mean, I don't know. I'm really not that interesting,
like,
but...
My dad was the one who was, in the Christian Science thing, like...
Oh, really?
The question that I got. Yeah,
right,
my dad
I
was
remember.
Christian Science. Yeah. And, like, I remember when I was little and he had to have the surgery for, like, uncured strep throat.
Right.
It was, like, scary to me because I didn't understand why.
Right.
I was too little at the time. And... it turns out my grandma on my dad's side had schizophrenia. I'm not that surprised.
Oh, wow, really? I actually am pretty close with somebody who has schizophrenia, and my next science video is going to be on schizophrenia, interestingly enough. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's really cool. And like I said, I'm glad that you found your way to my channel and to this section of YouTube. I am going to move on to another person. Like I said, I appreciate you coming on and talking to me, okay?
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Schizophrenia is such an interesting subject, and there are a lot of misconceptions about it, too. Like... a lot of people equate schizophrenia with, like, split personality disorder. And it's really not that at all. In fact, there's a huge hot debate in the psychology/science community in general about whether or not split personality disorder is real or not. Because the very first split personality patient who was ever whoever reported this, they talked to the psychologist, and the psychologist wrote up this whole paper about how their mind has 17 different personalities and all this other stuff. And they published this book about it, the psychologist did. And then the patient came out and said, I made it all up. None of that was true. It was complete BS. And so after the book came out, even though that patient wasn't legit, like thousands of other people contacted the psychologist and said, oh, I have that too, that same thing. So anyway, I don't know. It's possible it's real. That's a very good possibility. I'm not making a claim one way or the other. But anyway, yeah, I appreciate you coming on and talking to me, Ashleen, or not an Ashleen, or no longer an Ashleen. Stop being an Ashleen. That's your name. So the next person I wanted to speak with was Nagchampa. I think I'm saying that right. Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad.
So I feel like I've talked to you before. Have I?
We've like text.
Okay, okay. You haven't been on the podcast though.
No.
Okay, gotcha. So tell me, what religion were you originally? Are you still religious?
We kind of, like, I was baptized as a Catholic as a child, like small child, and then we weren't really all that religious through my childhood, and then I had some unfortunate years in my life from around when I was 9 to 12. I had an abusive stepfather who also, manipulated my mother quite severely. She was in and out of mental health wards. So then we got the joyous events of living with my stepfather only. And he was an evil piece of shit. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Swearing is okay on here. No big deal.
Anyway, so when I was 12, my mum finally was able to break out from his control and get away from him. But he'd left some pretty major scars on our family.
Sure, I bet he did. I have some scars from my father too, physical and emotional. So I'm right there with you. So you ended up like, how old were you when you finally got away from all that?
I was about 12. Yeah, I was 12 when that happened.
Okay. And she ended up breaking free about that time, right? 12, 13?
Yeah. We got away from him.
Right.
When, Anyway.
Interesting.
He kind of crossed a few lines, and then, it was quite a dramatic event the night we got away. Police were involved and all that, so.
I know. Police have been involved in my life, too, because of my father, so I'm totally with you there.
Anyway, the family was kind of broken, and Mum was looking for some way of bringing us together.
Right.
And we went to this Christian outreach church, and I remember the first time we went, like, I was an emotional mess at the time.
Sure.
And at the end, like, I got really into it. Like, I just really opened up to it, and I got really into it. And at the end, they asked for people to come up and be saved. And I went up there with Mum, and I remember, like, they lay their hands on you, and, then you fall down, and all other people falling down. But I just remember, like, I can't remember if I fell down or not. I think I just kept standing, because I part of my mind was saying there's something wrong with what people are doing.
Right.
Like, anyway, but then when I went, after that happened, like, all the people who'd come up went into the back room and they gave us a Bible and stuff. But I just remember laughing hysterically, like, something about, like, there was something, I couldn't control it. I was just laughing hysterically. And I remember the people at the church saying to me, "Oh, that's the effect of the Spirit entering your body."
Wow. And
I'm like, and so, that was kind of like the religious experience of it all. And it was pretty intense. Like, it was very strange thing to happen.
That is fascinating. So it sounds like some form of Pentecostal. Is that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I refer to them as the happy clappies.
Wow. So, like, how old were you when you got out of that?
I went to, because after that happened, we actually went to the high school, the private Christian high school that was attached to that church for a few years.
Right.
And I got involved. Like, I spent those few years trying to be a good Christian, but I remember having, like, a few events that were really, like, always kept me. There was always a part of my mind that was like, this isn't real. Like, a big one for me was seeing a lot of fakeness in the people at the church. A lot of people being good Christians in the kind of, like, going to church and all that, but then seeing them outside of that not being good Christians. So
hypocrisy then, is that?
Yeah, so much hypocrisy. And also just I actually took the time to try and read the Bible, and I remember coming across the bit about the unforgivable sin, blaspheming in the Holy Spirit.
Right.
And I got really messed up from that, because I'm like, how do I know if I've done this? I don't even know what this means. And I remember trying to talk to people at the school, and no one could give me a solid answer on what it meant, or why everywhere else we're told every sin is forgivable, and then suddenly we're told there's this one unforgivable sin.
Right.
Like, just, there was no answers, there was nothing. And to top it all off, I was actually starting to realize I was gay, which was completely incompatible with the church.
Right. And so this was like this was a Pentecostal church then, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I wonder how they felt about you being gay. Like, did you ever come out to them about it?
No, not while I was at that school. I messed myself up trying. Like, part of the reason I didn't want to accept it was because of some of the abuse I'd got from my stepdad.
Sure.
And I had a lot of issues to deal with there, so it took me a long time just to accept to myself that I was gay.
Sure. Well, how old were you roughly when you accepted that?
18.
Well, I'm glad you finally ended up accepting it. I mean, it must be hell living like that, living and denying it to yourself. Go away, kitty. Get. Shoot, can you guys hear that?
We can't hear the cat.
Meowing? Okay, all right. Sorry. Anyways, it must be hell living like that. So I'm so glad
and a lot
that
of
you
people,
came out.
like, a lot of people, when people come out as gay, they're like, "Oh, have you really thought about it?" And I'm like thinking, God, I've been thinking about this for 6 years.
Yeah.
I was It's funny because I was like, by the time I came out as gay, I was not considering myself a Christian anymore. I wasn't
Right.
really sure what I was calling myself at the time, but I didn't really think of myself as a Christian.
Sure.
But my mum was.
Mm.
And so I was a little bit worried, and she was still involved with those sort of very conservative Pentecostal churches. But I had a situation arise where someone was going to out me to my mum, and so I decided to do it myself. And she gave me the best response I could have possibly expected, which was that she said to me, even though my religion might say this is wrong, I will never let it be an issue between us. And as soon as she said that to me, I burst into tears because I was
Wow,
so
man.
stressed about how she was going to react.
That is
and
incredible. Go on.
Yeah, and that ultimately led her, like when she was trying to talk to her church about the situation and try and get some guidance on how to deal with the situation, and she never did make it an issue between us. The church just kept turning her away. They didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to bring the issue up, and that, in combined with a couple of other things that occurred, ultimately led her to walk away from the church as well, because
Right.
she couldn't see, she couldn't, in the same way I couldn't find a common ground between religion and homosexuality, and some people do, and I'm not going to try and stop them, but
Right.
I think she couldn't mix being a Christian with accepting a gay son, and she wasn't going to reject me. So
That's good. So she ended up choosing you over religion, essentially.
Yeah.
Is what it was, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So is she religious now? And are you religious now? You basically you're not, right? Is what you said?
no, most of the time I'd call myself an agnostic atheist. Sometimes to troll atheists, I'll call myself a naturalistic pantheist, which is really just the belief that God is just an unconscious universe, and everything in the
Okay.
universe is God, and everything that happens is, it's really not. It's almost like it's not really a religion because you don't. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's what I go to because I still pray, but I see prayer as kind of like an internal meditation.
Sure.
It's kind of a way to just
calm
yourself.
yourself and
Yeah.
I'm with you. I know what you're saying. That's very interesting. Well, I am glad you found yourself on the outside. I'm glad that you finally accepted that you're gay. That really makes me happy to hear that, because that can be just absolutely rough. Of course, I never had any kind of experience with admitting to myself that I'm gay or anything like that. I didn't have to go through any of that, but I did have to go through similar stuff, not with being gay, but with being an atheist, about hiding that from people. And I'm not going to say that it's the same for sure, but...
Yeah. No, as an Australian, it seems so foreign to me, the idea that you would have to hide being an atheist from people.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine an environment where not believing in God would be an issue.
Right.
It's strange.
You're really heavily... Like, it's not dangerous necessarily. I mean, just like coming out as gay isn't necessarily really dangerous, quote unquote, right? But...
Yeah,
you're definitely socially ostracized for it.
And there's a lot of personal risk involved depending on who you're talking to.
Right, for sure. Well, anyway, I appreciate you coming on and talking to me. That's really good. I'm glad to hear that things have made a turn for the better. So maybe we'll talk to you again sometime.
Okay, no problem.
All right. So I understand we have some questions from the chat and other places. Is that right?
Indeed. And our first question is Telltale going to any conventions in the near future?
Conventions. Okay, so there are Jehovah's Witness conventions, and that's what I thought when you said that, but I'm actually assuming you mean just like cons or whatever, right? I'm down to go to any of those. That sounds pretty cool. I don't have any set up specifically. I know VidCon is kind of the place to be for YouTubers, but I don't really want to go to VidCon because I feel like it's way, like, I'm way too small to be on VidCon. Like, it just does not feel right being there with people with millions of subscribers. I only have like 50,000 or close to it anyways. So, I mean, 50,000 is nothing to sneeze at exactly, but it's nothing compared to millions. So, I don't know. Maybe I'll go to VidCon sometime. If you guys have a suggestion for a con you'd like to see me at, then hit me up and let me know where it is and what it is. and when.
Okie dokie. What is your favorite color?
Black, like my heart. I'm all emo. No, I'm just kidding. It is black though, but second favorite is blue. So, I guess they're both my first favorites. I have two favorite colors, black and blue.
All right. What is your opinion on whether Jesus would be left wing or right wing?
Oh, that's interesting. It seems to me like so the political scale isn't always as clear as let me see. I'm going to pull something up on here real fast. Okay, so this is the political scale for those of you who are looking at the live stream. So we've got the y-axis, the vertical axis here. That's libertarian to authoritarian. And then on the x-axis, horizontal, we've got left and right wing, right? And you can be anywhere on this scale. I actually have, I took this political compass test and I recorded it. So at some point I may end up putting the results up, maybe talking about it in a science video or something. But I fall right about somewhere in here, libertarian left. I don't feel like the government should be involved in basically anything you're doing, but I think that they should prevent companies from just destroying society by pumping carbon into the atmosphere all willy-nilly or whatever they want to do. There should be a lot of regulation to protect society, and but we as individuals should be allowed to do whatever we want. I think Jesus would definitely fall on the left wing here, on the left side for sure. But he kind of believed in a theocracy, right? Serve God and just do everything God wants you to do. An all-powerful being who tells you what to do 24/7. That's authoritarian. And libertarian is less of that, right? So since I'm libertarian, I don't want the government involved in my life. And an authoritarian does want the government involved in their lives, like, the whole SJW debate thing. I'm not taking a side, SJW or anti-SJW, but SJWs, quote unquote, if you don't mind me using that phrase, are more authoritarian. So they can be right-wing or left-wing. It's not a left-wing, right-wing problem, the SJW thing. It's a libertarian versus authoritarian problem. And they are more authoritarian. So I would say Jesus would fall on the left wing, but really high up on the authoritarian scale. So probably somewhere up here in the red. That's what I'd say.
Okie dokie. And then we have, somebody was saying that they have just started doing yoga and things, and they wanted to know your position and your thoughts on that.
Interesting. So I don't really know a whole lot about yoga. From what I understand, there's a spiritual side to it or whatever. I don't really buy the whole spiritual thing about yoga. If you're just doing it to be healthy, get some exercise and things, it's fine with me. I have no qualms with it. And you know what? Even if you're doing it for the spiritual side, I have no problem with that. Go nuts. But I'm not personally going to buy the spiritual side of it. It just seems like complete garbage to me. So, yeah, that's where I fall with yoga. Of course, Jehovah's Witnesses banned it. Like, you were not allowed to do anything yoga because it had a spiritual side like that. But I don't know. That may just be complete BS. For all I know, they were just going overboard like they do with everything. So, anyway.
Okay, someone just wanted to tell you that you're a cool guy.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. You're a cool guy, too.
And the last question I have is, what is Telltale's background in science?
In science. I don't have a background in science aside from psychology. I do have a psychology degree. And I'm also what you would call a computer scientist, ? If you call that a scientist. I'm a software engineer. And it's like there's a difference between a programmer and a software engineer. The main difference is a programmer gets into code and gets in there to modify it, do this thing or that thing, right? But a software engineer is hired to solve complex problems, algorithmic problems, things like that, analytical problems. So it requires a little bit less schooling to be a programmer than it does to be a computer scientist, I think. Not that one's better than the other. I work with programmers and computer scientists, but yeah, that would be my background with science anyway.
Okay, I've just had a last minute question, which is, what does Telltale think about spirituality? Is it good or bad, and does it lead to cults?
Spirituality. I guess it would kind of depend on what you mean by spirituality. Here's the thing. I'm sure you guys know who Sam Harris is, or most of you know Sam Harris. If you don't, just go look him up on YouTube. It's pretty interesting stuff. He's a neuroscientist, and he talks about morality and free will and things like that a lot. And he did a really good book called Letter to a Christian Nation. It was very, very well written. But anyways, like I was saying, you know what? I lost the thread. What was the question again?
The question was, is spirituality good or
right,
bad?
Okay.
And
so Sam Harris...
does it cause cults?
Sam Harris is all about spirituality. He meditates and he subscribes to this whole mindfulness, Buddhism ideology, and he's an atheist, and that's really honestly very surprising to me. But for that reason and that reason alone, I will give spirituality another look, quote unquote. He also wrote a book called Waking Up, Guide to Spirituality Without Religion, or something like that. I don't really buy it. I don't buy it at all, but I'll take another look for Sam Harris's sake because he seems to think that there's something to it. So, anyway.
Okay. And does Telltale watch Eli the Computer Guy?
No, I've never heard of that before. Eli the Computer Guy. Do you know what that is?
I have no idea.
Okay. No, the answer is no. I'm sorry.
Okay. So moving on, I think you've got, this is a username to talk to who was cut off last time.
Okay, cool. Do you want to unmute him? Hey, are you there?
Hi, I am here now. Yeah.
How's it going?
Hey, it's going great.
By the way, we're getting a little bit of an echo. I think I can hear myself in the background. Do you mind maybe muting the stream? Is it that could be it?
I don't have the stream on. I just have Discord open.
Huh, weird. Okay. Anyway, it seems to be gone. So we haven't, we spoke last time on here, didn't we? Is that what it was?
Yeah. Yes, last Sunday.
Right, and you got cut off. I don't know how far we got. It's been a while, but tell me about you. Refresh my memory here, and for the audience who's watching this one, what religion were you in originally?
It was originally Christianity. I don't remember what sect.
Okay.
And then I got exposure to the internet. Wasn't really forced either way, and just decided that I didn't believe in it.
Very good. So how old were you roughly when you kind of realized you didn't believe in it?
Probably like 11.
Wow, right? That's really young. I probably said that exact thing last time. 11's really young.
You said I had 8 years on you or something.
Yes. Oh, man. Well, that's good, man. I'm glad to hear that. So do you have any kind of crazy stories about being in religion when you were in it? What was your mom like? What were your parents like when you were in it? Were they pretty oppressive or not really?
No, I wasn't really forced either way. At the time, I was I was really young, so
Yeah.
But as I got older, I was kind of just I was encouraged to have my own views on things. I didn't really suffer anything really. I just saw through it and was like, you know what, I don't want to do this.
Right. Well, I guess that's lucky, huh?
Yeah, and one person who may who may be a little oppressive is my grandmother, but then again, I don't live with her or anything.
Right.
And she's not oppressive. She just it's just a massive guilt trip. If I walked up to her one day and said, I don't believe in God, she'd probably break down in tears or something.
Sure. It's a math. I mean, she isn't really anything she can do about it, quote unquote, I guess, right? It's just
I just keep it on the low, and it's not a big deal.
Doesn't really bother you to keep it quiet, because some people, they just cannot stand the having to hide it like that, and I can totally get that. But other people, they really don't mind having to hide it like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there was one time, like, I was going through a bad time, and my grandma was like, well, just let God take control. And I was kind of like, I got really angry, and I kind of just pulled out my phone and started typing "I believe in science" over and over again.
Oh, wow. Right.
But nothing really more than that.
Very interesting. Wow. I'm glad you're not on the inside. I may have asked you this last time too, but what drew you to this this community in YouTube? What drew you to my videos and other atheist / anti-cult videos?
Well, after school every day, I kind of go on YouTube binges, and you started showing up in my recommended box. Right. And I started watching your videos, and I got really interested in different religions and stuff. So it kind of just happened by accident.
That's awesome.
But I really like it.
That's good. I appreciate that. Do you watch any other atheistic YouTubers? Like, a lot of people come to my channel through Professor Stick or something. Have you ever stumbled across him before?
I think I've watched like one video by him. I can't even remember what it was about.
Awesome. I think you are one of like 3 people total on the internet who didn't find me through Professor Stick, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that is pretty cool. Was there anything that you wanted to speak about specifically? Anything you wanted to talk about? Any
Maybe
questions for me?
programming.
Oh yeah, programming. Are you into programming?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, how old are you now again?
14. I know the basics of a few languages. I'm working on a Python project right now. It's kind of top secret though.
Oh, awesome. All right. So a Python project, is that the primary language that you use, is Python?
No, I really like JavaScript, but I started to realize that it's starting to die a little bit, so I thought I'd change things up. That way I don't become
obsolete. That's interesting that you say that. I do not consider JavaScript to be a dying language. I view JavaScript as flourishing wildly. It is exploding right now in my industry.
Well, then in that case, I would do very well, because I at one point I had JavaScript down. Right?
Well, here's the thing about it. So, do you know what libraries and frameworks are? Have you ever heard those terms
a little bit
before? Okay.
I've used some libraries for like CSS stuff for like different colors, but I don't really know much about frameworks.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I got to back up from the mic a little bit. So a library is basically if you have a JavaScript library, it's something that it accomplishes some goal. Like, you'll have a library for graphing. You have a graphing library, or you have some other thing, right? A button library that makes buttons a certain way, and is basically just where somebody designs something in a certain way with JavaScript, and then you can access that thing. They give you the package that they designed. You download it, and you load it into your system, and you use what they designed. It's a third-party library is what it's called, right? And so there are some libraries for JavaScript that you can use, like for 2D game engines. One of them is called Phaser. That's pretty cool. You should check that out. And also there are some frameworks. And frameworks are basically like, they set up this whole system where they want this web application to run in a certain specific way. So they set out these functions for you, like 10 functions, and you just write what you want to happen when this trigger happens, or when that trigger happens, or whatever, right? That's a framework where you load this library, basically, and as these events happen, your code is called to to run whatever code you wrote. And if you like JavaScript, you should really look into Angular. Have you heard of Angular before?
I have not.
Okay.
I only know the basics. It's kind of sad.
Oh, no. You're 14. I mean, just anything is really beyond your age, mostly. So that's pretty awesome.
I saw this segment on 60 Minutes, and it was like this 12-year-old who was making an app to to cope with Alzheimer's, and I was like, dang it.
Yeah, but you know what? That's like, he made it on 60 Minutes. Like, that is not a common occurrence at all. So don't feel too bad about that. But you should definitely look into Angular with JavaScript, because that is where the industry is heading right now, as far as I can tell. Angular or React/Redux. Redux is a pretty popular framework right now, and React is a library. So yeah, check that out, and you can probably go somewhere with that. That's pretty cool, though.
All right.
But
yeah. One other thing is the difference
Sure.
between a software engineer. That was really cool to learn tonight, because I realized I don't really think I want to be a software engineer. Like, I like making the flowcharts, but
Sure.
I hate going into Google and spending like 5 hours trying to fix something.
Really?
I just like writing.
Okay, I'm with you. So you would rather not have to, like, solve complex problems and things like that. You'd really rather just design stuff. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd rather just like to make the flowcharts and then write the code to get there, and maybe do a little bit of Googling, but like
Right.
I don't want to like get stuck revising someone's code.
Right. I'm with you. So I live near I live near a university. Probably shouldn't have said that, but it's not that secret. But anyway, I live near a university, and this university has two programs, one of which is traditional computer science, and the other program is, I don't want to say it because it's unique to that university, but it's basically just a programming course. So you can go for, they usually have like 2 technical programming style courses at a university. So you should definitely check that out. You should see if you can find one at a university near you, or whichever university you want to go to.
If you could DM me that university, I know you might not trust me,
Right?
Like, people leak stuff, but
Right.
That'd be really cool.
Okay, I'll give you some information about it either way. So, but send me a message and tell me so I know who I'm talking to and stuff.
All right.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I'm gonna move on to the next person, but it's been really good talking to you. I'm glad you made it back.
Yeah, you too. See ya.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Although most of my viewers probably aren't super into computer science stuff. I don't know, but I find it really, really interesting. I love computer science stuff. And wow, it's late. I didn't even see what time it was. Okay. Infinity's Bane, you got some questions for me? We'll go about 5 minutes.
Yep, we just got 3 last questions.
Okay.
So the first one is, what are your thoughts on Christian Pentecostals? Are they a cult? And they said, I have a friend whose parents are pretty abusive and highly religious, and they are Christian Pentecostal.
Very interesting. Yeah, Pentecostals can be very extreme sometimes, but it's a little bit broken up. Like it's hard to tell from church to church. They're usually kind of different from church to church. Generally, I would say at the very least it's a cult-like mindset for sure, which, as I've said before, can be just as bad or worse than a cult. I wouldn't hesitate to call individual churches, like individual Pentecostal churches, cults, if I could take a look at them and analyze them specifically. But without seeing which ones we're talking about, I can't make a definitive call on it. I'll call them a cult-like mindset generally, though.
Okay. What sparked Telltale's interest in art and drawing, and how long has he been going?
I've been drawing since I was very young, and actually what kind of inspired me to do it was a Jehovah's Witness elder from the congregation I went to. He was an okay guy, I guess. I wanted him to like me because, I don't know. He just, like, you want elders to like you, generally, right? And he used to be an artist, and he gave it all up for Jehovah's Witnesses. He made so much money from those paintings at one point. And he was borderline famous. He was getting there. I Googled his name and found him at one point. And he just threw it all in the trash for that religion. But eventually I ended up, when I was young, probably 10, he taught me a little bit about sketching and art and things like that. And that's really, I mean, I learned more on my own than I did from him, but I guess you could say he kind of inspired something of an interest in me, so.
Okie dokie. Then we have, what really got you to talking about religion and cults on YouTube? Were you inspired by someone, or did you think of it yourself?
Well, ultimately what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about religion. I felt like there was a vacuum in, hang on. I felt like there was a vacuum in the atheist community on YouTube because they had all gone over to the whole anti-SJW thing. And I was kind of sick of hearing it. At one point, I started to see in them the same mentality that I saw in religious people with logical fallacies and biases. I mean, in the anti-SJW crowd. I am by no means an SJW, but I can see in... Okay, here's Telltale alienating his audience. I could see in Armored Skeptic the same thing I saw in religious people. The same thing I saw in the people he was fighting. That same mentality, that same bias. I have no respect for him anymore. I used to love his videos, but I can't watch them anymore. I can't do it. So I saw a vacuum in the community at the time, and I just knew I wanted to do something atheist related. And eventually I started talking about Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's when my channel exploded. And I was like, holy shit, I love talking about Jehovah's Witnesses. I just didn't think it'd be a popular topic. It turns out it is. So I not only got to do YouTube, but I got to do the thing that I wanted to talk about in the first place. So that's how I found myself where I am. And over time, my channel formed out its goal, its mission statement. So yeah, just takes time.
Alright, and then the last question is for an artist that wants to draw you as a Pokemon. What is your favorite Pokemon?
Right. It's actually a lot harder. That's probably the toughest question I've ever been asked in my life. It would have to be from the first generation, for sure. I don't want it to be a cliche one like Mew or Mewtwo or something. Those are so cliche. Everybody loves those. And I'd say Chansey, except Chansey is kind of heavy, and I'm not heavy at all. So, couldn't be Chansey.
Fat-shaming Chansey?
No! I'm just not me is all. It's not me is all I'm saying. I like Tauros. Tauros is pretty cool. That was... I would spend hours trying to catch Tauros in the Safari Zone back in the day. Okay, I've given you a few that I like. Let's see. I always used to go with Squirtle in the beginning because Blastoise was so freaking powerful. But then I realized that Charmander is kind of more powerful than the rest to start out. And I could get a Cloyster later. And Cloyster, that's the name of it, isn't it? Cloyster? Mm-hmm. Okay. I could get a Cloyster later, and it's basically just as powerful as Blastoise. So then I started getting the Charmander and just using Cloyster when I eventually reached Fuchsia City. Although then there's Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl's, I could do this forever. Aerodactyl reminds me of Archaeopteryx, which is the transitional fossil between birds and dinosaurs, I think, right? So there you go. I gave you a few. Work with that. I'm going to go with Aerodactyl as my final favorite.
Yeah, just mash them all together. That'll be a great thing.
Yeah. All right, guys. I appreciate you coming and talking to me. I will see you next week.